Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our New York State Bridge Authority meeting, February 20th. But before we start our quarterly monthly meeting, we're going to do our government's committee meeting agenda, February 20th, with myself, Roger Higgins, and Dane Lashawa as committee members. Adopt the minutes of the December 19th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adopt the minutes of the January 16th, 2014 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
3, consider a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners regarding fiber optic leasing regulations. There's in our packet here, there is a revision of how we're going to finalize leasing out regulations.
Move that we send it to the full board.
Second.
Second, any discussion? If not, roll call, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And 4, consider a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners regarding the adoption of a DWI policy.
I've got some questions, but I'll save them until we get to the board.
Okay, so we're
Probably
going
be more
to
appropriate. So I'll move that we send the recommendation to the full board.
I do too. I do. Comments.
all right?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We'll have it at our board meeting. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All righty, any other business? If not, I know Mr. Bellucci wants to say a couple words, but
We don't have.
I know. I want to be polite.
I don't have to. I want to move.
Make my job easy.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye. All righty.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. We couldn't have done it without you.
Whatever that was.
We are at our February 20th regular scheduled board meeting in New York State Bridge Authority. On my left here, we have Mr. Rod Dressel, we have Mr. Dane Lashawa, commissioners. We also have Tara Sullivan, assistant executive director. We have Commissioner Roger Higgins. We have Commissioner Joe Romaglia. We have our counsel Carl Whitback, and we have our executive director Joseph Ruggiero, and myself as chairman, Richard Jernigan. In saying all that, I'd like to adopt the regular board minutes of December 19th, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Also, the adopt the regular board minutes of January 16th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Anyone have to add anything? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Right.
Okay, next, engineering. Mr. Monroe.
Good afternoon, everybody. Our first item is our annual in-house capital improvement program. These are items that our maintenance superintendent feels we can accomplish with our own forces, so we prepare a list of tasks and have the list reviewed by our general consultant, confirm that they're necessary and appropriate, and they also do an estimate on the cost savings. So we estimate a savings of $1,044,300 by performing this work in-house, and the budget for the full package of work is $1,008,020.
Any questions?
Well, I don't have a question, but I said to Tara, whispered to Tara when I was reading it over, that's an incredibly extensive list, and aside from the savings, I think you and the staff should be highly committed. Not got it done yet, but if you get it all done, highest commendations. It's very ambitious, and I was very, very impressed.
Well, thanks. We have some.
I think originally, originally this was asked to be made up several years ago because there was so many things going on, and there really wasn't a record of it. And
That's
so
true.
this essentially now is a budget,
Right.
shall we say?
Yep.
And
Get a little more recognition.
One of the things about the painting is one of the things I was concerned about is that since this is a one-time, it looked like to me a one time at a time kind of painting job. Are there any concerns about safety and personal
Well,
problems?
we do regular spot painting. You know, the major lead abatement projects, of course, with the full containment, they're done by contractors, but inevitably there's areas below rusty, below open joints that
Oh,
get
so it's
rusty.
just-
So it's
not the whole-
localized.
Not the whole
Right, they're all
process.
localized.
I'm
and,
sorry, the Rip Van Winkle looked to me like that was the whole shebang.
You know, the towers, there's a lot of, high, difficult access locations that we do work on, but, we have spiders and scaffolds, and we have all the appropriate equipment, and these are activities that we feel confident that we can safely accomplish.
It's not on the scale of what we're doing in Newburgh, but
Right.
it's
Right.
not small either. I mean,
But these are the little spots that if you let them fester, then it becomes a very expensive, capital project, and if you keep up with it every year, we can extend the service life of the major paint jobs. We got over 20 years out of the last couple of capital paint projects by regular routine spot painting, so.
The one question I have is the fact that, like Roger has mentioned, that, it's very ambitious, it's very cost savings, and hopefully you can meet those numbers that I'm sure you can. Have you looked into any grants that might be available for such things as lighting,
Yeah, we
might be able to save you more money?
We do have some reimbursement coming through the NYSBA program for the LED lights. One of the projects we did, I guess, maybe 2 years ago now, down at Bear Mountain, we replaced all the street lights on the bridge with an LED
Mhm.
light fixture. Saves us about 70%, 65% of the energy cost each year. So we're expanding that up to Newburgh and included the eastbound bridge in the deck replacement project, since all the light poles had to come down anyway. So we will be getting a couple $100 per light fixture reimbursed from a NYSBA grant. So grants are kind of hard to come by today, but energy grants, we've been a little bit more successful with those, and that's, we'll do more of those LED streetlights, I think, as we gain confidence in the performance and the overall reliability of these LEDs. So.
And if you are successful, please note it to the board so that we're well aware of it.
we just actually, not that it's an in-house capital project, but we actually just made an application to the governor's office to be part of the federal priorities. We're asking for about $10 million to redo the Route 9W overpass over the Newburgh Bridge. They did they'll probably better describe the project, but they did a similar bridge replacement out on eastern I-84. They kind of cut and cap and replaced the bridges, and they actually, when they came up with this method, came here targeting actually that bridge as being one of the ones they wanted to do a demonstration on. But then as they've done it successfully on other bridges, we're okay to let them try it on ours. So,
Right.
so hopefully we'll hear more about that over the next year or so if we're going to get any of that funding.
Move we approve the budget.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, roll call, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next project, we had the fiber optic cable damaged in a fire earlier last month, and you had authorized up to $40,000 to repair that, do the splicing and replace the section of fiber optic cable that was damaged. So the cost for the actual splices came in at $28,667.82. Subsequent to when I mailed this to you and today, we had some other challenges with the performance of the fiber optic line, and Shups has helped us track down the problem. So all the cameras are up and running right now. But there is about another $4,500 that I'd like to be able to add to the, I don't have the bill yet, but we could pay this, and I can report next month on the
Well, you
total
recommend
cost.
35,000, so it would include that 4,500.
Right,
Correct.
we could do that.
But you actually authorized already up to 40,000.
Yeah.
So it would be included in that 40.
Right, and I'll just report back the actual
Right.
cost.
Okay. And he also, I mentioned last meeting about the insurance, Joe looked into it. Joe just basically did not, wasn't cost efficient for us to.
We got a $100,000 deductible, I think,
Okay,
or
so-
Brian could tell you better. So we're just gonna pay as we go with that.
Mhm.
You have two resolutions here.
Someone move them, please?
So
First
moved.
one?
Second.
Any discussion on the first one? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Second one?
Move the second one.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next,
Thank you.
2014 pickup truck acquisition.
Yeah, we have a list of almost antique trucks here that we'd like to replace. A lot of them are 10 years old. A couple of them are just under. Of course, they become unreliable at about 110,000 miles, and with the hours added to the mileage on some of the trucks with less than 100,000 miles, it equates to, again, well over 120,000 miles. So we're able to get pickup trucks on the state contract, and we'd like to recommend the purchase of 6 new Fords and 1 crew cab. 6 new Ford pickup trucks and 1 new crew cab. Henderson Ford is a MDE vendor, so that'll help our participation.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Bill, on that, those trucks that we are replacing are go out for bid when we have our surplus.
Yep, we'll go to auction.
When you have the
probably.
auction, you put the others up in the auction.
Yeah. Yeah, it draws a crowd. We don't always make a lot of money, but
I guess it did say here, how much service do you depend on these?
service, well, we get, of course, the extended warranty, and
I forget, where are they coming out of?
Henderson Ford is, rustle up my sleeve.
You take them to the nearest Ford garage anyway.
Right,
For the warranty.
right, any dealer will provide the service.
I'm sure you have a big interest regarding snowplow trucks.
Right,
this
right.
winter.
Yep, we usually draw a pretty good crowd for the vehicle auction. Next up, we have a new project here on the Mid-Hudson in response to Majeski and Masters inspection last year on the pin and hanger connections at the end of the Stifton Truss. So we opened bids on February 11th. We've got 3 bids attached to the back of the report there. Quite a spread, but the low bid was very close to our engineer's estimate, which was $525,000. So we've worked with Kiyosaki Steel for the last couple of decades. They're outstanding steel repair contractors, and we'd like to recommend award.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, roll call, all in favor say aye. Next, jobs in progress, monthly report.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet with the snowfall. We were able to restripe the worn lane markings down at Newburgh this morning. They had there's a minor shift in the lane position during the construction effort, and the lanes had been restriped at the beginning of construction. They wore out. We restriped them in January. That didn't last more than a few weeks because of the rainy, cold weather. So they were restriped again this morning. Nicer weather. We used a higher performing epoxy paint, so we hope everybody can find their way safely across the eastbound Newburgh Beacon Bridge with the new stripes. We've gotten a few complaints from the public, so hopefully that's addressed.
How about what potholes?
As of this morning. Well, we experimented with something called the Pothole Killer. It's a somewhat automated truck that cleans the hole and dries it and sprays the asphalt emulsion in, and then sprays the hot asphalt in, and you can do a lot of potholes in a short order instead of the usual manual effort. So we did a bunch of potholes, I guess, 3 weeks ago down on Newburgh with this machine. We just hired the contractor.
We got like a propane heater in it?
Yeah, and it's got this big arm that you can control with the joystick, and so you don't end up with a lot of men in the road. So we're going to lease that for a month and try to keep up with potholes this spring. So we should get that early March. In the meantime, we're just using coal patch to get through. But yeah, as soon as we get these rainy days, it goes in a hurry.
Not gonna do it tomorrow.
No.
Move to accept the jobs in progress report.
Second.
All in favor?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, financial?
Good afternoon.
For the month of January, we had 8 investments, routine debt service, 1 to maintenance. We had the last element of our construction fund investments that we originally made at the time of the issuance of the 2012 series come due. 1 to the revenue fund for payments later on this year, and the annual true-up of debt service reserve fund. On the next page, those investments are reflected in the investment inventory, currently sitting at approximately $88 million for both the construction fund and the maintenance reserve fund. To note, based on our projections, we will likely consume the majority, if not the entire remainder of the 2012 series bonding this year, probably sometime over the summer. Interest is a little higher as we ended the year with some investments put away for year-end expenses last year, and it's likely to go lower as the last long-range investment from the 2012 series matured in January and is now, everything is in very short term.
Any questions? If not, so we accept the investment report.
Accept the investment report.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next, Human Resources, the Workplace Agreement Extension. Nancy?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have a service agreement between the workplace and NYSBA, which expired on December 31st, 2013, and we are not in the process, but we've already issued the RFP effective February 18th for services commencing January 1st. I'm requesting that our service agreement with them, which was amended in September of last year, be extended on a month-to-month basis until we receive the responses to the RFPs, which are due on March 11th, and then enter into a new agreement. In the meantime, I'm requesting that the Board of Commissioners authorize expenditures not to exceed $25,000 to the workplace so we can continue to provide these services for the health and safety of our employees.
So moved.
Second? Just Nancy, one question.
Sure.
Understanding St. Francis is going to be sold or under contract, is it going to have any bearing on this agreement?
We just wanted to explore our options and make sure that we were getting the best value for the money.
We don't know the answer to that yet, because it depends on what happens with the reorganization. Then today there was just a wrinkle in the paper even about Westchester Medical.
The judge is recommending Westchester.
Yeah, so it's all going to play out, but in the meantime, we're still operating as if what's going on over there is transparent to us.
Well, they're hoping that it will. Right.
Right.
They're providing services that we pay for after the fact, so we'll never be extended to them in any sense. They'll have provided the service before we pay any bill. Should they cease providing the service, we'll have to go back out and look for another provider.
Well,
That's
we'll
all.
see also with, like, to Nancy's point, right now we're doing month to month with them. An RFP could come out of a totally different entity altogether. We may not even be dealing with them after March. So.
Any other questions? If not, on this resolution, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Operations?
Afternoon.
Hi, Wayne.
Just have our invoice from the Thruway Authority for the fourth quarter 2013 Easy Pass expenses. Nothing out of the ordinary. Overall transactions fourth quarter down a little bit from last year. To be expected because our November and December weather was not optimal. So the invoice was for $869,077.97. I ask you to consider that for payment.
So moved. Second? Second. Discussion, roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Next, the various
You know,
reports to
that
the
would be up
board.
with all the Easy Pass we sold here. I thought there'd be users here and so forth.
I'm sorry?
I would think that the number of Easy Pass tags that you sold there, they would be ones using our bridges, and so this figure would be a little higher.
Well, it's all included. You know, it's.
But if you compare it to last year, I guess what I'm going by.
Yeah, but when you look at actually our percentage of Easy Pass customers, we have increased market share in terms of Easy Pass customers in the commuter plan and things like that. So, but overall, to impact that, still
Traffic overall dropped.
Right.
Of course, the easy pass.
So, right, percentage-wise, we're increasing slightly. October held its own, November and December were down a little bit because overall traffic was down.
But overall, our Easy Pass penetration has increased by approximately 2% or more in 2013. And a good part of that may be because of the tag sales. So we are seeing, we actually analyze the percentage of Easy Pass each individual month, and you can see over the past few years, it's grown by about 2% a year. And actually, the trend has changed a little bit. So we do believe we've had some impact with that.
When I first got here 4 years ago, our penetration around the average of 58% Easy Pass. Now we're up to almost 70.
That's what I thought.
Right.
We'd be paying the throughway more than, because they're the ones we pay. We take it in here and then we pay them, is what we're doing, right?
But don't forget, part of that is also the increase in everything. Yeah, the revenue and traffic report, which we basically just discussed. We're, with the weather, we're beginning to see an impact on traffic. We're still meeting our revenue numbers. Easy Pass sales are beginning to, still doing well in the lanes. They're beginning to drop off. We don't know if it has to do more with the time of the year. We're going to do a little push putting the signs back up in the spring to see if we get an uptick, or if we haven't, or we may have reached the saturation point with Easy Pass penetration. So to be determined. But we actually had a really good year this past year with nearly almost 11,000 tags sold. Other than that, those are the basic reports. I have no expenses to report. And then we can get into the what the governance committee reported.
Any questions for the director? If not, let's get into the governance committee recommendation of the dark fiber leasing regulations. Everyone has a copy of that.
Carl, do you just want to explain what we're doing in general?
Well, the dark fiber regulations that we have now are basically assume that the contractor, whoever it is who proposes to follow that regulation, is going to build out their own system, and they're going to own it and be responsible for it. That system didn't work very well, and over time, we stopped collecting rent almost altogether. The only tenant that we have really now is the state of New York, and they're not paying. So we've decided, and we've done over the last several years, fiber optic, where we've built our own systems to take care of our own fiber optic needs, and we've done them in a way so that we would be able to rent space on that. And these regulations formalize that and make a process by which an interested party would be able to tag on to our fiber optic system. It creates a regulatory mechanism for that.
Any questions?
Does that involve, and forgive me, does that involve any capital investment on, or is it sharing fiber capacity, or is it actually putting separate fiber in for a customer?
We don't build a dark fiber network unless we have a customer, as we did when we had Time Warner across the bridge. We do have our own fiber needs that when we need them, we have to take fiber strand for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's the excess capacity. And each customer that comes after. So each the first contract technically pays for the project. No toll revenues go into it. It's basically because we actually have a deal. When we build it, they pay rent, and then for 2 years we recoup, and it becomes positive cash flow for the authority.
Any other questions? If not, a motion to accept the dark fiber leasing regulation? Second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any other, there's a DWI policy?
So over time,
Not motion.
It's become apparent that, we don't have a uniform policy with respect to employees who are charged, especially with driving while intoxicated, and, what happens to them while their charges are pending, and once their case is adjudicated. For those of you who don't know, driving while intoxicated is a misdemeanor, and when you're convicted of driving while intoxicated, your license to drive a motor vehicle is revoked. And when it's restored, or you have a conditional license, that conditional license requires that you have an interlock device on any vehicle that you operate. Well, we can't have interlock devices on our equipment. It's not satisfactory. It's just they don't work that well, for one thing. But that means that everybody who drives that vehicle has to blow in a tube and work the interlock. It's just not acceptable. Driving while ability impaired convictions are not as disruptive to our operations, but still an employee's license is suspended and they're not able to drive our vehicles. Some of them have, accumulated time. All of those things cause us problems, and this policy basically makes it uniform how we're going to treat people who fall into this category. It doesn't happen, frankly, that often. When it does happen, it's very disruptive.
How do we find out that an employee has been arrested?
Our policies require them to tell us. They don't always tell us. We do read the newspapers. There isn't a mechanism by which we get notice from the Department of Motor Vehicles or anything like that. And that system is not in place. If I had to bet over time, that will happen.
But we do have a
service
to the lens, which is the license
right.
and notification
Right.
system.
Okay.
So if there is a change in event,
most of the time we do find out. Is that right? Every time?
Some lag,
Yeah.
I have a problem with all these. This is not talking about conviction, it's talking about arrest. We're assuming he's guilty.
We're not assuming he's guilty. He cannot drive a motor vehicle.
He's only arrested.
While his case is pending, he can't. They can't operate a vehicle.
That's the law.
Right. Their license is suspended pending prosecution. So it does definitely create a problem for us.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with these. I'm going to oppose it. It's not going to matter.
Carl, they can, if I read it correctly, they can be transferred to another position, potentially at a lesser pay, correct?
Right, if we had one.
Right.
If we had that available. And we have done that on occasion.
Or they can take no pay. What happens if the
They
case
could-
is pled out?
Well, when they're pled out, that's, then...
What if
then-
he's acquitted?
then Well, if
That-
he's
well, that too.
acquitted, well, if he's acquitted, there's no problem.
But is there-
If he's
is there a
acquitted, his
process to
license is reinstated and there's no issue.
Is there a process, though, to reimburse this employee for the money the potential money that they would have lost going to a position of lesser pay, or if they decided to work or just to take a leave with no pay? And
The
now they're
state-
acquitted.
Yeah, we're not taking their license away.
No, I understand.
We're not disciplining them in any way with respect to this. We're just taking action because they're not able to operate a vehicle.
I understand.
And the state
that.
of New York is suspending their license pending prosecution, not the Bridge Authority.
So let's.
So no is the answer.
Contractual condition of employment in the collective bargaining agreement, they have to have a good driver's license standing in a CDL. So if someone gets a DWI, this is because I had these same questions
Right.
a couple weeks ago, and even to Joe's point, pending trial, the license is suspended automatically by law.
Correct.
But they'll give them a restricted for work without a blowing.
We actually had an
Right.
employee.
If they're restricted and they can drive, then the policy, I don't remember right off the top of my head what we say about that.
It
That's
says
not
the
really
employee
what
does
we're-
not qualify for a valid restriction-free CDL.
If they have a restriction-free license, which allows them to drive while working, the conditional license doesn't allow them to drive while working. The conditional license allows them to drive to and from work.
This would only apply to employees who are required to drive an authority vehicle as part of their job. And that requirement to drive an authority vehicle means they have to have a valid license while they're operating that vehicle. We're not taking their license away. If the state suspends their license, we
No,
can't
but
let them drive the vehicle.
we're taking their money away.
But we can't let them drive a vehicle as part of
I
their
understand,
job.
I understand that. I simply said that if the person is acquitted, as Joe said, or their case is pled down, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't know how often that happens, but,
You mean pled down from a DWI to an AI? Regularly. That certainly could happen.
there is no way that, we don't reimburse that employee. And I don't know that that's fair.
I'll give you an example unrelated to DWI. We have an
Well, that-
employee who has an injury, and that injury now no longer allows them to have a CDL. Okay? Condition of their employment is to have a CDL. They can't meet that condition. We can't let them operate the vehicle. All right? Say they have impairment of the eyesight or whatever, limb or whatever. They can't operate the vehicle. They have a CDL of restriction. They can be assigned some other assignment that doesn't require it, which isn't many, depending on the title, or they have to go out sick or use their time or whatever. It's kind of the same thing here. The state says their DWI, their license is suspended, or they don't have a clean CDL, therefore they don't have a CDL, then they're not able to meet their conditions here at work. I mean, if they're in limbo because of pending potential prosecution, we're caught in the middle. We can't let them operate a state vehicle.
That's not where I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble with the fact that someone is innocent until proven guilty. Until that case is adjudicated, we are taking away that person's money with no plan to reimburse that employee should they be found either not guilty or found guilty of a lesser crime. And that person has now been penalized financially
Right.
with no recourse.
Not to go to extremes with it. Someone's charged with murder, is sitting in jail pending trial. They obviously can't come to work. We can't pay them, and then they're exonerated at the end. We pay
That
them back.
judge kept them in jail. I mean, I deal with this a lot with Port Authority and New York City DOT. In the meantime, when it's pending, they all get a restricted license and they go back to work. I'm just uncomfortable the way this last paragraph reads.
Let's read it.
I think probably what Joe's, I think I understand where he's coming from, because if normally there might be a fellow that's an employee that's been maybe a 25-year employee, and all of a sudden happens to be going home for the point, what is it, .08 is the bad number, that's a .9, and then, but really when he's not, alcohol is not a problem in his life, he's not an alcoholic, but as Joe says, as long as he can get a license to drive at work, I think that's
Right.
Would it be more palatable to you if we just didn't have it be applicable to them pending prosecution?
I'm okay with the whole thing. I'm not against it. It's just, if he gets a restricted license in between, where they naturally automatically suspend it, goes to motor vehicle, he gets his restricted license back for work.
Right.
without the device, why are we going to penalize?
But is it, under the law, Carl, it's one thing to have a restricted license to drive to work. If you have any type of restriction, how does that apply to a CDL?
Okay.
Because all our maintenance workers are required to have a CDL. All of them. So is there cases where they'll give a
Well,
conditional CDL?
The CDL would only be impacted by a conviction.
Exactly.
All right.
The CDL they would lose with a conviction of a misdemeanor.
But during the suspension period, would it only be?
This is during pending prosecution. It wouldn't bring into there wouldn't be any impact on the CDL.
Right, so that's to Joe's point.
Right. So
So
the
what Joe's saying
CDL
that they can be able to drive.
The CDL
during
is
that period of time.
a federal regulatory process, not a New York statutory process. So pending prosecution, the CDL would not be impacted. So you could treat it differently pending prosecution.
So when would, and like the paragraph says, where it is found that driving an authority vehicle and qualification for a CDL is an essential function of an employee's position, an authority employee who does not qualify for a valid restriction-free CDL, or who has
That's
not
the
been.
problem, because they issue.
All right, so I don't think
CDL
that
as
pending
restricted.
prosecution does that, but why don't I just make sure?
All right, why don't we table
We'll
this?
just wait for a month and I'll see. Okay.
Because we actually had an employee request that we install
An interlock.
an interlock about several months ago. We refused.
Yeah.
And that person was put into a different assignment where they didn't have, because part of their duties was required to drive a vehicle. And we put that person in a different assignment where they didn't have to do that at all. So we took a step, but this speaks to how we really deal with it. Because I wasn't aware that because driver's license is a privilege, not a right, they are able to suspend it pending prosecution.
Right.
Conviction, I should say.
This policy impacts only people that need the license to work. for
Only
instance.
impacts maintenance workers.
Correct.
Well, no.
Well, I suppose it could impact.
As senior toll collectors
Right,
have to do
right.
the security
Right,
tours,
right.
and there's a lot of people who are driving
Yeah,
our
but they're
vehicles.
not
Well,
driving,
all right, someone who
they're
doesn't
not
drive a
driving
vehicle.
CDL vehicles.
If someone is
But-
not required to drive an authority vehicle, this policy would have no impact on them.
Right.
This only impacts people, when somebody gets into an authority vehicle, they have to have a valid license to drive that vehicle. This policy only goes into effect when their valid license impacts.
Right.
So, for instance, and I don't know if it happened, but if somebody were to be issued a conditional license that says you can drive just like you did before at work and every place else, this policy wouldn't take effect because their license is not impacted to perform their work duties.
But it's called restricted.
And the
While
employee
that's
I was
pending.
speaking of was not a maintenance worker, okay? But any vehicle that person was going to drive, the only way they were authorized to drive it was with the interlock. Any and all vehicles. So therefore, they asked the request of us in order to meet compliance because of their license. We said, no, we can't do that here, and then we put them in a different role until they got.
I mean, this obviously is not unique. There are companies all over the country. I'm thinking of Bettini Fuel Oil, FedEx,
Right.
They all have drivers that,
Right.
are potentially
That's
at
right.
risk
Right,
if
but
they
again,
if
the
they get
CDL,
arrested.
the CDL requirement that all of those drivers have is only the federal regulation, which doesn't apply pending prosecution. That only applies upon a conviction.
If I understand correctly, this would only apply to someone whose ability to legally drive an authority vehicle has been taken away from them.
Suspended or revoked.
Even though their job requires them to drive that vehicle, we can't let them do that job if they don't have the license to drive it.
Right.
It's basically what this policy addresses.
Certification of any kind.
All right, so we're gonna hold this over till next meeting.
Yeah,
Carl, you're gonna give us some information, please,
Will do.
provide it to Joe, in return give it to
I'll send it out,
commissioners.
I'll send it out to all of you.
Will we, is there a plan to publicize this once it's adopted, just to let employees know, or do they
Oh, yeah,
already?
no.
Oh, yeah, we would let the
No,
employees
Every
know,
time we
yeah,
do
for
policies
sure.
from the board, it goes out to everyone.
But we don't put out a press release or
No,
anything.
But we're, this is a.
No, but the employees would know, yes. for
And you
sure.
have a question?
Yeah, one in the second paragraph that says, transferred to another position does not require the performance of safety-sensitive functions. What position isn't, in maintenance, isn't safety-sensitive? I mean, it just seems like,
Well, like, when we use that term, we talk about when they actually are doing what we call hazardous work on the bridge itself versus a cleaner.
They're on
Well,
the
what
climbing,
about-
they're on the climbing list, for
what about
example.
pulling a vehicle out to, make sure that nobody's behind you, when you're backing up? I mean, everybody has safety-sensitive things.
No, but that term, safety sensitive, when it's kind of like a buzzword at the Bridge Authority that talks about specific classification of certain tasks.
So your job is
give
not
it- give it-
safety-sensitive, or,
Yes. There's a safety component to everyone's job here at the Bridge Authority. When we talk safety-sensitive functions, we're talking when they're hanging off the bridge.
Climbing, driving.
yeah, right.
Right.
But safety, it's sort of, because everybody, that's part of what everybody's doing, is being sensitive.
Right.
That's why our accident rate's going down.
Right, safety is, what there's, training is on everybody, it's everyone's responsibility.
But I'm sorry,
safety
this is
sensitive.
picking things.
No.
We'll do some more work on it, and I'll send it out to all of you to look at.
Thank you, Carl. Any old business? Any presentations to the board? New business? Attorney-client?
We have not even attorney-client, I just need to consult with the board on everybody else. Yeah, we can adjourn and everybody else is free to.
Anything else? If not, the motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Next meeting, March 20th, 2014. Thank you.